Hello, welcome everybody. We have a special guest with us, Brittany Zeer.
Hello.
Brittany is one of our newest staff members here. Really excited to have you. You bring such expertise, a broad range of topics that you'll get to kind of learn about. But most specifically today, we want to go into this idea of healing pain holistically, of which you've got a bit of a journey with that and experience. And I would imagine that comes into your private practice as you see clients. But of course, we'll talk about, how it extends beyond that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, let's just dive in. I mean, you kind of propose this idea. I know there's a lot of people out there that do deal with chronic pain. What was your experience, your journey, and how did you make it through?
Yeah, so I had a concussion in January of 2015, and prior to that, I'd never had a migraine or anything of the sort. And that hit on the head, I slipped on some ice, I smashed the back of my head, and a week, the doctor said spend a week in a dark basement and you'll be totally fine. And my life was never the same again from that point. So I developed daily chronic migraine, which also led into fibromyalgia and a whole slew of other things. So that was 7.5 years. And I'm happy to say for the last year, I've been chronic pain free, which is really, really incredible. I woke up in June of last year with this thought of like, wow, I haven't had a migraine in like 10 days. What happened? And so it has definitely been a journey, and it was through holistic health and through nutrition and coming off all pharmaceuticals and all of that I was able to heal and recover from chronic pain. And now I live a blissful, fulfilling, thriving life, which ties into my business of blissful womb care. So a little bit of backstory throughout that chronic pain journey. I had been on birth control for about 16 years, and it was only last year that I learned that one of the primary hormones associated with the menstrual cycle is called progesterone. And when you are on birth control, you're on synthetic hormones. So my body wasn't producing natural hormones for 16 years. But one of the primary functions of progesterone is to prevent your brain from injury and also to support your brain in healing in the event of injury. So it's no wonder that I didn't actually start to heal until I came off of birth control, so that my body could start producing the natural progesterone. But prior to that, like I said, I'd been on the pill for 16 years. For about 5.5 or 6 years of my chronic pain journey, I was on all kinds of pharmaceuticals. I was getting Botox injections every 3 months. I was getting weekly occipital nerve blocks where they inject lidocaine into my skull to try and numb the nerves, muscle relaxants, a whole bunch of other kinds of stuff. And I wasn't getting better. In fact, I was getting worse, and I was on antidepressants and a whole bunch of things. And it was the summer of 2020 where things really shifted for me, and I decided, I was like, clearly this pharmaceutical route hasn't been supporting me, so I'm going to come off of all of that. And what was so interesting was once I did, I began to connect to my body, womb, and soul in a way that I never had before, which was the beginning of blissful womb care.
Wow.
And so through all of that, I started to connect to my cycle. And one of the things that I do with blissful womb care is I teach women how to connect to their cycles, how to understand fertility awareness, how to understand the different energetics of the menstrual cycle, how all of that correlates to the moon and the seasonal cycles, and how when we can connect to ourselves and tap into ourselves in that way, we can live a more blissful, fulfilling, thriving life. So that's one avenue of the journey. But what really transpired when I woke up that day in June of last year of I no longer have chronic pain, I started to look back at what else had shifted in my life. And at the time, I was also in a 9-month-long course learning about postpartum care and the 5 essentials of postpartum care, and how traditionally and ancestrally we had tended to women based on these 5 essentials. But cross-culturally, just based on the land that women lived on and people lived on, determined what those were. So the 5 essentials are rest, warmth, body care, nourishment, and community support. And so as I began to integrate all that I was learning within that, especially around nutrition, I started upping my fat intake and my protein intake. I was switching from buying conventional factory farm meats to local grass-fed meats. I was having bone broth that I was making on an almost daily basis. I had been incorporating lion's mane on a daily basis for almost 2 years and upped my omega-3s intake. And I was just really living a lot more in tune with my body. I was getting to the root of the emotional and mental and spiritual things that were manifesting in my physical body as well. But it was really through, I truly believe, through the holistic nutrition and supporting myself with these really nutritive and supportive things that my body had been so depleted for so long, that I woke up and I was like, oh my goodness, here we are. And then came a whole other thing of, well, this has been my identity for the last 7.5 years. How do how do I do something different? How do I shift all of that as well? So yeah, that's just a little bit of the backstory of my journey.
Amazing. I love hearing that. Not only that you got out of chronic pain, you know, you found a new way, a new path in life, but it's so common, you know, that most of us in kind of the natural health movement, we get there because of those struggles, those years of like, you try this, and you get to this point of just like, no, it's not going anywhere, right? And you do a U-turn and you just try and figure something else out. And then once you do, you want to share it with others.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing, like in store, every time that I'm here, I'm talking to so many people. They come in with very similar stories to me of, you know, the only thing that I'm getting from the medical field is pharmaceuticals, surgery, or well, let's remove an organ or do something like that. And I talk to people in the store every day who are like, I know that there has to be another way. And so it's a long and arduous journey, but there really is another way to come back to holistic healing. And
unfortunately you had to go through all those years of pain and struggle, but it sounds like things like just really clicked.
They really did. And I mean, there was a lot of other things that were happening in my life during that chronic pain journey that amplified everything as well. And so now I can really truly see how my pain has become my purpose and how that was really one of the greatest gifts of my life as well. Throughout the whole thing from day one, I was like, everything happens for a reason. There has to be a greater purpose to this. And so that has been the foundation of creating Blissful Womb Care for me as well, where not only do I support women with cycle awareness, but through pregnancy support and postpartum care. Because those 5 essentials of postpartum care really is just what is required for essential thriving life in general. So when we can tend to the mothers in that way and honor them and support them and pour deep nourishment with those 5 essentials in, then we're starting from the foundation and building thriving life from there on out for future generations to come. So I have integrated those 5 essentials not only to heal my life, but for many other people in my life, whether they're postpartum or not. And the ripple effect of what that healing has been really incredible too.
Cool. All right. Well, let's keep on the theme of like nice, like kind of feel good, positive stories, turnarounds. What have been some of, you know, without naming names, what have been some kind of testimonials, like how you've clients that you've worked with and helped them? We heard your story. What are some examples of people that you've worked with in your practice?
Absolutely. So I had the privilege of supporting one woman. I was in home with her for 2 weeks when she was between her 4 to 6 weeks postpartum. So really that first 6 weeks is kind of the most crucial time when the body is the most vulnerable and when it's expending the most energy to heal. And so I was in her home for 2 weeks at a time, preparing her deep nourishment, tending to her, supporting her partner, supporting her baby. And when I left, she was vibrant and she was healthy and she was happy. And she says now she's about 9 or 10 months postpartum now. And she says that she truly believes laid the foundation for her, especially because she has talked to other new moms who didn't have that, and how she feels in her body and the bond that she has with her baby and her partner is so different than other people have experienced as well. So that's one example. Another example, I supported a woman. She was about 2 months postpartum, and I went in for a couple days as well. She was feeling a lot of nervous system dysregulation. She was feeling really disconnected from her baby, lacking that bonding experience. And through the 3 days of tending to her, pouring this nourishment into her, and one of the final things that we did before we left was the closing of the bones ceremony, which is a cross-cultural postpartum tradition where you wrap a woman in a large shawl called a rebozo, which comes from Mexico, but they also use a similar shawl in other parts of the world as well. And it's crossed and held across the body as a way to energetically and also physically close the body back up. And so she had a really powerful release, and her baby was a part of the experience as well. And when I left, she said, I feel bonded to my baby now, when for the 2 months previously she wasn't. Now, another example of how something like that can be done on someone, whether they're postpartum or not, I did that practice on my mom, who's 30 years postpartum now as well, after her youngest. She had had a heart attack, and she said she also felt like her heart was healed now, and she had had a hysterectomy, and she said she feels like she has her womb again. So the closing of the bones ceremony and practice around that has been one of the most impactful ones that I have had results from with the clients that I have worked with. But what is fascinating to me is how quickly, when there's nervous system dysregulation, or when a new mother is feeling disconnected from herself, if she simply just changes what it is that she is putting in her body, in the sense of incorporating warm foods that are easy to digest and are nutrient dense, all of a sudden the fog lifts. She has more energy and more spaciousness to tend to her baby. She's sleeping better, the baby is sleeping better, and there tends to be more peace and calm in the house. So the nourishment piece is one of the things that I myself am personally most passionate about, because that was one of the things that I integrated the most and I saw the most benefit from as well.
Wow, that's cool. So never too late, hey? Like even 30 years beyond.
Exactly. Well,
Wow.
Because women are postpartum for forever.
Right.
The moment that you are pregnant and you are no more, so whether you suffer from a loss, whether that's a miscarriage or an abortion or a stillbirth, or you're 30 years postpartum and your children are adult and grown, the body physiologically will never be the same again. And if a woman is not tended to in those early days postpartum, that lays the foundation for possible disease and chronic illness and dysregulation to come forward, not just for her, but for her children as well. But repair is always possible, so it's never too late. The body is postpartum for forever, so when we can tend to you, whether you are 3 days postpartum or 30 years postpartum, we can bring you back in and nourish you and replenish you and support you in that way. And that also supports generational healing as well.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I love where this conversation has gone. You know, we started off kind of with the premise of, you know, healing pain naturally, holistically.
Yeah.
And what I love is that you didn't go like, well, I just took some white willow bark and it, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, because it's holistic. It's a
It
whole
is.
picture, right? Like it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is like so many times people are like, well, what's the one thing? What's
Right.
the one thing that I can do? And it's never just one thing. And we also, we live in this world that wants the quickest fix. That, okay, what's something that I can take that is going to mitigate all of
Right.
this? But because we operate, or what manifests on the physical also begins on the spiritual, mental, and emotional level as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's all of these supplements and herbs and nutrition and all of that sort of stuff as well, that you can take. But if you're not addressing what is going on deeper inside of you as well, it's hard to really get to what the root of whatever it is that you're
Totally.
experiencing.
I mean, I was just thinking, like, you know, had you stayed on the birth control,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have got the same healing. Had you gotten off the birth control but not done everything else you did, you wouldn't have got the healing, right? It was a
Exactly.
complete
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it
beautiful.
is.
I'm sure that's probably a whole conversation we could have at another time in
Yeah.
terms of like coming off birth control,
Yeah.
right? Like how many young women or even older women that are kind of faced with the repercussions of altering their body in that way, you know? Yeah. I think post some comments down below if you want to hear Brittany share that journey, because
Yeah.
I bet you it's not easy.
It's not. And I talk to women all day, every day, who
Right.
have very similar stories to me. Not many have been on the pill for as long as I was. But yeah, I would love to
Yeah.
talk about that at another time as well.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on,
Yeah,
sharing
thank
who
you.
you are and your expertise. And if you've been watching, if you enjoyed this, let us know down below. What else would you like to hear from Brittany on? You know, within that span of right, the kind of the fertile years.
Exactly, absolutely.
I
The
know.
entire childbearing continuum.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. Which our culture just kind of narrows to this very
Yeah.
short window, and yeah. But as you say and have experience with, extending that window out has so many benefits. So, and of course, if you want to come connect with Brittany in person, she's here working at Light Cellar. You can find her behind the bar or on the shop floor. And then, how can people find you online if they want to work with you? Find your website. Let everybody know.
So you can find me at blissfulwombcare.com, and then also on Instagram at blissfulwombcare. And one final thing I just want to say, it is never too late to heal. I truly believe that this was just something that I was going to have to live with for the rest of my life. And I got to a level of acceptance of that. And it doesn't have to be the rest of your life, whether it has to do with chronic pain or the motherhood journey or anything associated with that. Healing and repair is always possible.
Awesome. Beautiful message. So thank you so much. Share this out. Give it a thumbs up, the likes. And yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.